Good morning, Husker fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. We're here for another Nebraska football chat. We've got, lots of things to talk about here today. Nebraska Big Ten Media Days. Unfortunately, some not so great news coming out last night about Bob Wager. And as you said, Danny, it's just there's always something kind of going on with this program. And once again, right before the season starts, we get not a bombshell, I'm going to say, but some fairly significant news about Bob Wager. So I'll go ahead and let you take it away. But basically, Bob Wager resigned yesterday from a DWI, and so yeah, you kind of wrote up some stuff yesterday. But what are your thoughts on this whole debacle? I'll say.
Not a good look. Not a good look for Bob Wager. A good on Matt Rule for not letting this, fester in the program and immediately hiring a replacement in Josh Martin, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I mean, it is always something around here. We can't have 1 week without drama, whether it be on Twitter or actual program stuff, and it's just I'm happy this was taken care of swiftly. I would have liked to have seen what Wager would have done, here, but obviously anything that he does off the field, especially in a situation like this, outweighs what he could do on the field. And I agree with Andrew. It was a good decision by the coach. We're doing well, Andrew. We're doing well. Always some news to report. So, I mean, um, and the thing that was interesting to me was that the police report was dated in the month of February. There was a 2 on the police report, not a 7, obviously indicating July. So I know we talked about this a little bit off air, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are in regards to that, because I was a little confused at first.
Yeah, that was confusing. So I saw. I think at this point that must have been a typo because Amy Just, of the Lincoln Journal Star, or, yeah, I think that's what it's called,
Yep.
one of the newspapers.
Yep.
At any rate, she reported. I know other people had said it was Wednesday that this happened. That he was actually cited on Wednesday, which I believe would have been the 26th, right? And
Yep.
that was the
That
same
was
date.
Wednesday.
So I think that all makes sense. The only other thing that I thought that could have been potential is if, it happened, like in February or something, and Wager, just denied the the breathalyzer test or whatever. I don't know, I'm just totally guessing, but I think that then I think they go to like the hospital and they have to get a warrant, basically like test your blood type thing. And
Mhm.
so I don't know if they were like waiting for something like that. That was my only other thought. If the initial arrest happened in February, if they had to wait for a blood test. Although that seems like a long time for, I'm sure they have to be faster than that. I don't know. I've ever had to take a blood drug test or anything, but
I've never
and
had to
then
take a drug test, but a blood test, they can usually tell the results within like 24 hours. So that would be a long time. But
okay.
I mean, y-
Unless there was like some appeal process or you get like retested, which I don't, with employment stuff, there probably is something like that, because you probably have to be like for sure like 100% for sure. But it just seems like that was just in maybe a typo on the thing, which
which is
that's
kind of
how.
a big typo, honestly. I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't
the
know.
police. I don't know, because I was thinking back on it now. If this was, February, like the police report said, Carter Nelson and all those tight ends still committed, knowing this, and somehow, the star or whoever didn't get wind of it, and say, hey, we'll throw a couple bucks cash in order to get this scoop out or something. Like if that happened in February, like I'm pretty sure we would have heard about it, by now. Honestly.
Yeah, I think enough people are connected. I mean, it would have been out there somewhere. I mean, that's just pretty hard to keep under wraps at a place like
Yeah.
Nebraska. But I mean, you never know. Maybe it could have been, but it does seem like the reporting around it suggests that it did happen Wednesday. And regardless, Bob Wager is out. I don't know. There is some interesting things though. I know like Sean Callahan. He did a kind of a show with Sipple, and I noticed some things that were retweeted that he said. I didn't watch it, but about how like Wager didn't really do that much, or didn't get out to Ainsworth to see Carter Nelson. And I don't know. He seemed to mention, he said it felt off, and maybe it wasn't a great fit. I'm not really sure what
Well,
happened, but
Sean
you know,
Callahan, let's be honest, Sean Callahan loves to sensationalize things and create drama. So while that may be true, I don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt here. Um, and I kind of had a hard time believing that a little bit, just like because Carter Nelson also had other, really strong offers. So I'm thinking either, if that's true, maybe somebody else picked up the slack in his recruitment, for example. And, I don't know. I mean, situations like these, or not even just like this, but any situation that causes drama around Husker Nation, Callahan lives for. So, this was his time to shine last night, and he certainly had some takes that lived up to his reputation.
Yeah, and then I don't, I love my guy Steve Sipple. I think
Uh,
but I don't
I do too.
necessarily agree with him that tight end's an easy position to coach.
No.
So there's a lot that goes into it. I do think, Josh Martin. I do like this,
Yeah.
this addition. He's coached tight ends at, he's been a full time assistant at SMU and at Arizona State. They had him. He was being like a special teams analyst, and we all know this. Tight ends play a lot of special teams because they can block. They can. They just have that
Yeah.
body type for it. So I think that's kind of a good, transition. He sent guys to the NFL before. At SMU, he's got ties to Texas. So I mean, in terms of filling this void, I don't think that Matt Rule could have done a better job in terms
Yeah.
of having somebody on the staff that he could pop into that role already.
Well, you just kind of mentioned it. Josh's father, Joe, is the executive director of the Texas High School Coaches Association. So, I mean, that's still a pretty big tie for the state of Texas in terms of recruiting. And, you look at Josh, he mentored Kylan Granson, who was named to the Belikanov Award watch list in 2020. And, he recorded, um, 14 receiving touchdowns, 1,257 yards, and 78 receptions in 2 seasons you know, um, for the program. And he was selected by the Colts in the fourth round of the NFL draft in 2021. And then at Arizona State in 2014, the Sun Devil offense had a 91% conversion rate on red zone trips, which ranked 12th in the country, and a national ranking of 16th overall with 37 points per game. And he served a lot of roles there. He was the senior offensive analyst at Arizona State, and in 2015, he was an assistant coach that had a focus on running backs and tight ends. And then prior to that, in 2014, he was an offensive graduate assistant. So this guy does not lack experience. This wasn't a shot in the dark hire. Just somebody to fill the spot quickly. I believe that Martin, between his Texas ties and his success, getting somebody drafted into the NFL, I don't care. That is a notch in his belt, no matter what. If you recruit him or not, if you can get a tight end drafted in the NFL, that's a win in my book. So I think this is a really good hire. He has a solid resume, and we don't lose that Texas tie in recruiting, which I think is very important.
Yeah, I like that too, and just having the experience. I realize that it's not the most ideal situation, but I feel like he can step in there and kind of fill into that role as best as possible. So we'll kind of see how that goes. It's not ideal with fall camp starting. Sorry, my screens are just getting blasted out by sunlight in this room. But at any rate, yeah, it's not the best timing, obviously, for Nebraska. But I don't think that it's something that is going to have a huge impact on the season. The one thing I do miss about Wager and that I liked about him especially is that he had that head coaching experience, and I thought that was something that was really
Yeah.
worthwhile. I mean, just you never know with like game management situations and stuff like that, having all that experience. But I definitely feel like that they're going forward, in the right direction, and hopefully this isn't something that's really gonna impact their season going forward.
And I think having Martin as a backup plan, so to speak, I don't know if it will affect their season too much. You hate to see something like this, but I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, this was a rule that Matt Rule had to make, and set the tone of, hey, this behavior is not going to be accepted in our program, and that was something that has been missing in previous staffs, quite frankly.
Definitely. I mean, definitely. Yeah, there was not very much accountability from the head coach on down with previous staff. So, even Ethan Piper kind of talked about that at Big Ten Media Days. How Matt Rule runs a tight ship, and that's really something that Nebraska's needed. So, at any rate, if anybody else has thoughts on Bob Wager, I mean, go ahead and enter it into the chat. We've got a few people kind of joining us here, Andrew and Justin. Making some joining the chat. Justin said we made some bad takes there, but didn't really explain himself. So we'll see if he says anything else or whatever. I know everybody doesn't agree with all of our takes, but
We're not here to fight you. We genuinely want to have a discussion with you. So feel free. I mean, we love when you guys, good or bad, just try to add to this chat. It makes it fun. And I hate doing all the talking, and I know Chris probably doesn't like doing all the talking either. So we like when you guys come in, good or bad, and leave your comments here because I think this is already proving to be a whirlwind season, and we haven't even started.
it is great, and it's just fun to talk Nebraska football, just like if we were, like hanging out having a drink. So
Okay,
you
so
can go
here we
ahead
go.
and.
He says, while yes, there, Sean isn't always the greatest, I don't think he had a great day reporting this. He didn't say tight ends are easy to coach. He said it's an assistant job that easy to replace. He takes advantage of controversial situations. I'll say that. I don't think he had a great day reporting this at all, but he's never afraid to throw out a hot take in order to get the views and clicks that he wants.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, for
And it's not
I
just him either, by the way.
yeah, I mean, I like Sean Callahan for the most part, and I find him to be fairly, a fairly accurate reporter. And I saw somebody clip something from Sipple, so I mean, obviously it was a shorter, thing. I thought that's what he said that. But yeah, it could be an assistant job easy to replace. I could have definitely, then, and you're probably right on that aspect of it. I mean, it's not like you're losing like an offensive coordinator or somebody in terms of, that part of it. So no, I think that totally
You're all
does.
good, Justin. You're all good. No worries at all. I'm glad you explained yourself, and we're not mad or anything. We just wanted to figure out what you were trying to say, and I agree. If it came off as I said that he had a great day in reporting this, that's not what I meant at all. I mean, I just think that he thrives on certain situations in order to get clicks sometimes, as a lot of reporters do.
Yeah, unfortunately, as a as a
And
reporter
this
for
program gives them the moments to do them. So it's not like I can fault
yeah.
them all the way. This program, there's never a dull moment around here.
Yeah, man, just like how frustrating too. I mean, for Matt Rule, just to you get to Big Ten media days. This everything's really positive. You're starting fall camp this weekend, and then boom, you just have this distraction. But I know he'll move on quickly, and they'll get everybody refocused and moving forward. But yeah, it's just like, and I understand everybody's done this. I've done it before. I'm not going to sit here and act like hypocritical, like I've never taken a drink and driven before. I really try not to anymore because it's just there's so many other options too. And I mean, it's like you can't tell me that Bob Wager. I mean, I'm not saying he's rich beyond measure, or whatever, but like the dude's making six figures in Lincoln, Nebraska. So like, why can't you just call a freaking Uber, dude? Like, why do you have to do like it just makes no sense? Why put yourself in that position? Not that I want to go off on this topic, but that's
Yeah.
just one thing I don't understand. These guys that are like very, very wealthy, they have the money. Like, if there's nothing wrong having a drink or relaxing or whatever, just get an Uber, park your car, and have someone else drive you home. Buy a cab. It's
Yeah.
like $40, man. Like, you make 250K. Like, come on.
Yeah, I never understood that, especially with professional athletes as well. Just get an Uber,
Yeah.
I mean, even the not athletes, I'd rather spend $200 on an Uber to get home safely than to, drive drunk or, have one of my friends drive drunk and, pass away or something like that. I'd rather pay for Ubers, even if they're a crazy price than, to drive under the influence of alcohol. And I'm not trying to be a preacher. It's just, like you said, with the type of money Bob Wager makes, I don't get it.
Yeah, now I mean, now now he's out of job. So unfortunately, that is disappointing. But
Yeah.
at any rate, we don't have to spend our entire chat on Bob Wager.
I mean, this is the biggest piece of news
It,
that
it, it was a big piece of news if people want to keep talking about it. But I don't know.
yeah.
I'm interested too. In this weekend, it's a big recruiting weekend. Shoot, I'm trying to remember how many guys Nebraska's got
I
visiting. I
want to
think
say
it's like
30.
30. I
Yeah.
know it's over 30. It's like I think yesterday it was 34.
Let me look.
Yeah, I saw some people said it was 33, but I think they weren't counting DeVoe to Otaga because he actually visited Friday. because I believe that there's 15 guys from 2024 coming, and like 19, and actually there's more because I saw Quinn Clark put on Twitter yesterday that he's coming, and he wasn't listed on from On3 when I counted up and did my article Friday morning. I'm totally forgetting almost what day it is, but almost all the commitments, not all of them, but a good chunk of the commitments are coming in for what they've termed the cookout. Matt Rule's calling it the cookout. People had the barbecue and whatnot. So
Caleb Benning's coming on Monday too, so that's interesting. Which we kind of knew a little bit last week that he was coming. We just didn't know what day. So I'll be interested to see what happens with Benning.
Justin had another question. Do we know if Nebraska has a ride program like the Raiders do? I don't know that. I wouldn't think so for a university. That doesn't seem. I mean, maybe. I'm not sure though. I
That's a
can't
good
comment
question
on
though,
that.
because it is important, especially when you talk about young kids and college kids and things like that. So that is a very fair question. I'll have to look into that.
There's probably something in terms of like the school for students. I would think. I would hope. I don't know. If not, there probably should be. But just give people if you give people an option to choose that, I feel like
Yeah,
most of the time they will. So, but everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's saying that
yeah,
Bob
we're not
Wager
perfect by any means,
is a bad person or anything like that. He made a mistake. It's just it's unfortunate because just when you have that much to lose, you'd think that you would be a little bit smarter about it because one mistake, especially nowadays with the media and all that, it's hard to 20 years ago that might have just got glossed over. You know what I mean? He might not even been fired. And that's not saying anything about anybody. I know,
yeah.
it's just,
Especially the
but
media in Lincoln, though they're very
yeah,
uh, as if you couldn't tell, I'm not always the biggest fan of the media in Lincoln, but I mean, I just hope everything works out and Wager lands on his feet somewhere. I don't wish anything bad on him. It's just like you said, unfortunate timing, and especially after coming off the high of Big Ten media days.
yeah, I did like Big Ten media days though. I liked what Matt Rule said. I always do. I always enjoy what Matt Rule, has to say. And there was just, man, the line that he really got me was, he was talking about, learn from the past, prepare for the future, live in the present. Just that's how he's going to fix this program. And I just, his win every day mentality. I know all those things are really corny and all that, but they're sayings for a reason because they work. And the teams that really practice and preach that type of stuff and build the cultures and all that stuff, they really win. And that's why I feel very confident, in the long-term future of this program with him as the head coach.
Well, they're corny based on who's delivering it, right? If a coach with no success and a poorly run program is delivering win the day, slogans, then that's not the best. But with Matt Rule, I truly do think it means something. He's focused on building up the program to the best, best that it can be, and he said he wants to earn respect back, and I think he'll be able to do that. I just thought it was really interesting. I know Jeff Sims mentioned that Xavier Betts and Malachi Coleman were the fastest guys on the team, which Betts caught my ear because he's been out of football for a little bit. So, I guess he hasn't lost any speed, which is good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the guys that I'm watching, in camp is in terms of like, if I was to make a prediction about fall camp, in terms of like players that are going to stand out, he's one of them. I definitely
Yeah.
think that he's going to be starting when Nebraska, week 1, when we line up against Minnesota. I think he's going to be, one of the first wide receivers to try it out there on the field. And I mean, I just think about, that touchdown that he scored against Penn State, which I think it was like an end around or
Yep.
whatever. And he took
I
that, and
86 yards.
yep. I mean, just that speed. He had another play like that, and you can't teach that stuff. And Matt Rule gave him an opportunity, and I think he showed that he was grateful for that with the way that he performed in the classroom because he had some work to do, to get back in to get himself eligible, and he met all those kind of demands or requirements, and so I'm really high on what Xavier Betts can do this season for the Huskers.
Sometimes all you need is a second chance, right? And I think Betts is sometimes when you get second chances, the first chance you don't really realize what you have. Then the second chance, you're like, okay, I got to do this. I have a really great opportunity in front of me. let's make this work. And I think Betts is committed to doing that. We've heard it from Garrett McGuire. McGuire's been impressed with what Betts has been able to bring to the table on and off the field. So I'm really glad to see him seizing this opportunity once again. Because I was really disappointed initially when he was no longer a part of the program. He is still one of the remaining holdovers from the 2020 class, and a class that, quite frankly, was not good. So to have Betts back, I think is going to be really, really solid. And I kind of always thought that while he fit decently in the Scott Frost offense and during the Scott Frost era, I think he'll fit a little bit better, especially with the focus on speed and a Marcus Satterfield led offense. And I trust this coaching staff to put him in positions to succeed and not just throw him out here because of, the speed and not knowing what to do with him.
So Justin commenting on the offensive line, sounds like O-line has big improvements according to multiple guys from Big Ten Media Days. Even though it's biased, it's definitely promising
Yeah.
hearing that.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
sure. And that was, yeah, I think, just the fact that it's interesting that Ethan Piper, has been one of the guys that made it to Big Ten Media Days, because you would think he's going to be a starting player. So maybe that's some insight on what the offensive line does look like. I think there is going to be, I think, a little bit of a competition maybe at left tackle with Turner. Is Turner Corcoran going to start and play there? Because he might, we don't really know that much about the health of Teddy Projaka. They've said he's basically 100% ready to go, but can he make it through fall camp? Can he make it through the season?
Yeah.
So, and really, it's hard to your starting five or your preferred five. You're never going to play a whole season with those guys. I mean, that's just the way that football works. So even if Ethan Piper's not starting the first game, I'm sure he's going to play quite a bit. I mean, there's some other guys I think that are starting caliber, but really, if you look at those, I feel like inside Ben Scott, and then if you got Corcoran inside, Noreen Nudeli, or I'm totally mispronounced his name, but you guys know who I'm talking
I
about.
think you're right. Nor
Um, yeah,
Nordine Newelly, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. I guess it wasn't that bad. But yeah, and then with Piper Leftoski, so I think those three inside positions I feel pretty good at. It's tackle, and so if Bryce Benhart can just be a solid right tackle, I'll feel really good there. And then you've got Teddy and possibly Corcoran to move out to left tackle if he gets hurt. So I do feel optimistic about the offensive line,
Yeah.
but I felt optimistic last year too, and they weren't as horrible maybe at times as we all gave them credit for, but they weren't obviously as good as they need to be. So
In the Iowa game, they were really, really good. I think
yeah,
that was probably the best performance all season. But, Matt Rule said in the spring that Bryce Benhart could be an NFL level player. So I trust his evaluations, and believe me, I've absolutely destroyed Bryce Benhart on multiple occasions on this, podcast here. But, if Matt Rule sees something in him, I trust him and the staff to be able to develop pieces of the line that maybe weren't as strong last year. That's their calling card, and I really hope that they can get the line to even semi decent, because last year was bad. If we can get to semi decent, then I mean, we we laugh, but I mean, if we can get to semi decent and at least not let Jeff Sims get hit 75,000 times a game, then I'm optimistic.
I'm optimistic too. And it is, yeah, we laugh, but it wasn't funny probably for Casey Thompson. or Anthony Grant last year at times. But it also, you have to know your personnel too. And so I felt like at sometimes, like I've said, Mark Whipple, when your offensive line is not great at pass blocking, maybe you shouldn't, come out in the spread formation with basically only one running back to help. And then you're just like, well, hope you'll do better this time, fellas. I mean, it's like have some, but there was another thing that, Matt Rule said that stuck out to me. And he was talking about recruiting, but I do think it applies to like guys like Bryce Benhart, because you look at Bryce Benhart, he's 6'8", he's like 320 or whatever they list him at. I don't know if I always buy what, their weights that they list him at, but
Coming from a football team, I can say that when
you know,
they write in their weights and their heights, some of those numbers get a little exaggerated.
Well, I'll tell you, my high school, my senior year, I think they had me in the program as like 5'11", 220, and that was a good 5'10", 170. So, but they, but I do know that, I mean, Corey can't, like, I talked to Brian Buschini, for that article I did, and he said that he put on 20 pounds this off season. So, I definitely think that there's some truth
Yeah.
to some of that stuff. But my point with Bernard, he looks like an NFL player, right? He looks like an NFL tackle, and it's Matt Rule said, he talks about speed all the time. Like he said at Big Ten Media Days, if there's a guy that runs 4.3, in long jumps, whatever, if I can't coach that guy, then I don't know how to coach. And I feel like that's kind of true with Bryce Benner too. If you can't coach somebody that's 6'8" and decently athletic how to play offensive line, then maybe you're not, and I know we have the same offensive line coach from last year, but I just think that general mindset of Matt Rule, like that, it's up to me to get the most out of these players and their talents. And I just think that mindset and that the way he approaches it is going to benefit a lot of Nebraska players. And because, yeah, it's like Bryce Benner, he does, as a player, he does have flaws, but there are other things that he can do well. And I think highlighting those and focusing and trying to bring out the strengths instead of, the weaknesses, I think those are all really positive things that Matt Rule does.
And that's the thing. If you have players that do certain things well, yes, they need to like kind of step outside their comfort zone for the benefit of the team. But at some point, you don't want to push them to the point where, they don't even know they've completely lost their mojo when it comes to playing football. You want to try to work to their strengths and things like that. And I think this line will be really good in terms of run blocking. So I'd love to see Grant get into it a little bit more. I mean, we're obviously going to see a lot of runs. I mean, they're bringing back the fullback, so I think it's going to be exciting to see how this coaching staff utilizes their players' strengths and how they build off of that. Because and I was talking about this on another show. If you start winning football games, right, and you're in games where you have a comfortable lead and things are going well, then you can give some of your other players playing time, and then you can help those players develop as well and continue that development cycle, while getting live action in, not just developing them in practice, in the weight room and stuff like that, but game action to allow them to see what this is all about. Because there were a lot of good players in previous regimes that I felt sat on the bench for whatever reason. So I'm curious to see, if we can get, many of these players live action reps in order to help development. And I believe it's 3 games and you won't lose your red shirt. Is that correct?
4 games. You can
Four
play in
games?
4 games. Yep.
So I would love to see that because if they can just keep developing and get meaningful reps and, kind of not having to rely on one specific player for a position, then I think that's going to help as well.
Yeah, you look at all the best teams. I mean, they've got, I mean, just all the really good teams have basically 2 starters at every position. Like Georgia, if somebody gets hurt, they just throw in another guy that was like a top 100 player, and he's almost just as good as the next guy. And it takes time to build that. And there's development and stuff too. And a big part of it is recruiting. But I think Nebraska can definitely, can definitely get there. And when you're talking about, with Matt Rule and just another thing he said, when he was talking about the fourth quarter and, he said like his goals, are to rush for 75 yards as a team and to not allow the other team to score any points. And if you do those 2 things, then you're going to win a lot of games. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty smart. You probably will, because if you have the lead, then you're probably going to be running the ball a little bit, and if you don't allow other teams to score. So I think he takes a really interesting kind of analytical approach to the game. And I just think it's focusing on winning those little things. I think it really does help. And I think it is going to help because this programming, let's face it, we have not been able to close out games. If Nebraska could close out games, we probably wouldn't have even needed to hire Matt Rule, to be honest with you.
Scott Frost would still be here.
Yeah,
I
because he
mean,
would have like 3 winning seasons in a row, if it could.
and it sounds simplistic, 75 rushing yards, closing out games in the fourth quarter, but it hasn't been. I
No.
mean, it really has been awful. And to answer Justin's question really quickly, yes, this is actually our first full calendar year. Our first ever episode was July 27th, 2022. So we're officially celebrating a year of YouTube coverage. So thank you everybody for your support. But I think the idea of closing out games in the fourth quarter, running the football, taking time off the clock. There was a point in the Iowa game last year where Nebraska Nebraska executed a drive beautifully and took so much time off the clock. I'm like, why didn't they do this all season? And I don't think that's going to be an anomaly this year. I really do think that, with the physical offensive style they want to run, they'll be able to close out games in the fourth quarter. And I think they'll be smart about it. I don't think we're going to be running spread on 3rd and 1, you know?
Yeah, I liked too what he said about Jeff Sims, running the ball. That just made me think of him. He talked about like we don't want him running. We want explosive plays out of Jeff Sims. I'm sure if there's like some 3rd and 1 and they've got that's the thing though. If there's a play where it's 3rd and 1, you've got to have it. Having a quarterback that you can just run right up the middle, who's 6'4", is going to be a huge advantage. I mean, I don't know how many teams I've seen. Like Urban Meyer's teams were great at that. When his offenses struggle, he would literally just snap it to the quarterback and run for a few first downs to get things going, and you get the extra blocker. Nebraska, yes, they did that with the option, but it hasn't been, it hasn't been as prominent, recently. And so I'm hoping that they'll be able to take advantage of some of those situations. And I'm really excited about Jeff Sims. One thing I thought he said that was interesting. Everybody thinks I'm a runner, but I'm a thrower. So I'm excited to see him throw the football this year.
And we kind of saw it a little bit during the spring game, didn't we? I mean, he threw
Mhm.
some absolute ropes to, I believe, Gilbert and another one of the tight ends. I think it might have been Borkature, but I'm excited to see him play. I just hope he stays healthy because I'm not too sure, and I'm not going to get into this or throw shots at anybody, but I'm really just not sure about the backup quarterback depth beyond Sims. I mean, maybe you talk about development. Hopefully not, but there is a very real possibility, but just the way the game is played, that we may get some real time quarterback development. But in any case, I hope that Sims can stay healthy and play at a high level, and it seems like Nebraska made a solid choice for both Casey Thompson and Jeff Sims by making Sims a starting quarterback. Casey got a chance to go somewhere where he could be the starter in his final season, and Sims, gets to play right away. So I think, it kind of stunk the way things just kind of, you saw Casey transfer out obviously in April, but now I think, things are, better in terms of establishing Sims as the leader and getting a clear indication that he will be the starting quarterback. Because if you remember last year, I mean, there was even talk that Chuba Purdy may be involved in a quarterback battle heading into camp last year with Casey Thompson. So no quarterback battles here now. Sims is the guy, and it's good that that was established early.
Yeah, there was even talk last year, during fall camp that, Nebraska was going to kind of have like a special, not like a series of plays for Chuba. Like Scott Frost basically said, like, we need to get Chuba Purdy on the field, or series of two a game. And that didn't really come to fruition. And then when he did get his opportunity, he didn't play that well. But, injuries really kind of, and he just did not look healthy. I'll say that he looked better this spring than he did ever last year, during the season, because he
I think
just
they
didn't.
rushed him back last year.
Yeah, and he just didn't look like. I mean, when he threw the football, he did not look right. And he did have some good throws, but he just did not look right throwing the ball to me. So I'm hoping just by him being healthy that he'll be better, and at least he's played. I think that there's at least something to say for that. Like if he has to go in there and take a snap, like he's not going to crap his pants going into a Big Ten game. He's been there before. So I do like that aspect of it. And I should say, since we'll wrap up here in a few more minutes, guys. So if you have more questions, make sure you throw them out there. But thanks for everybody that's been joining us for the chat, and
25 live views right now. So thank you.
make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button too, so you don't miss any of our, future content. We've been doing this, yeah, for about a year. I mean, we're going to keep building it up. We've got huskerbigred.com too. So, all of this is just part of what we do. Our YouTube channel, we put out a great website, when it's growing really fast, one of the fastest growing Husker fan sites out there. So check that out too. And then we've got, our podcast on Monday. We're going to be doing these chats every Saturday, maybe a little more frequently once the season gets started. But, at any rate, it's been great, and we're just trying to build a community of Husker fans that want to hang out with us, and so I think we're on a good start.
Yeah, I'm happy to be able to do the website as well. Everybody's always told me I have a face for radio, so at least the website can alleviate you guys of this beautiful mug sometimes. But no, I'm really excited to do this. I'm excited to do it with Chris. I mean, me and Chris go way back. I want to say at least 3 years we've known each other. So Chris is extremely dedicated and extremely hardworking, and he brings the sense of professionalism and balance to this podcast, whereas I don't, and I'll fully admit that. But I'm really excited to get things going with him again, and I'm really excited to report on a program that's delivering excitement as well. One thing, okay, I'm reading Justin's comment right here.
Yeah, so he's talking about Sean Payton, listening to him and a poor sign of coaching, pre-snap penalties, which, yeah, that
We had
is
a
a
ton of
which
those last
we
year.
had a ton of those last year, and they kill you. They really do kill
They
you.
do.
You just, I mean, if you looked at percentages of stuff, how many percentages of drives do you score on offensively when you have a pre-snap penalty? It's going to be lower than if you don't. If you have a
Right.
holding penalty, it's just all those little things. And if you stack them up, it's like, yeah, they don't matter that much. But if you have 4 pre-snap penalties in a game, that's 20 hidden yards. And so it just seemed like all those little things for Nebraska really started to add up, and I think last year at times, especially at the end of the year, they were definitely better. With Mickey Joseph, they were
Yeah,
definitely better for sure.
they were.
But it's got to be a whole strategy, and I just really feel like Nebraska. I've said this before, but I just feel like we got super fortunate with Matt Rule, and I'm glad that things didn't work out at Carolina because he wanted to be back in the Big Ten, and Nebraska offered them that opportunity, and I think it's a perfect fit all around.
And some coaches are better, just college coaches, and that's not a knock on them. It's just a better fit. And it's interesting, like you mentioned, all the pre-snap penalties for a game is bad. You're driving down the field down by 3, second and 3. You get a pre-snap penalty. Now it's second and 8, and that makes a huge difference. So even one in the wrong situation can be extremely detrimental.
Yeah, and then not taking care of the football. I mean, missing tackles, just all the little fundamental. Like football is a complicated game, but it isn't. Take care of the ball, tackle, block, and you'll probably have a pretty decent shot of winning the game. And I think that's how Matt Rule views it. I mean, it's easy to say it. It's easy to say it. It's a lot harder to do it, but
Yeah.
it's about that everyday stuff. And that's how you get good at doing the little things. It's by winning the day, so to speak. And if you can get your players to focus on that and buy into that, at least in my experience, the teams that buy into that type of message tend to be pretty successful. So I'm hoping that they can do that this year. Matt Rule, and it was interesting. I mean, Matt Rule said he didn't really define a winning season. He said he wanted to win back respect, but my
That's
thought
smart.
on my thought in it is, but I don't think that how you win respect is by winning football games. You don't get respect by going 3-9 and getting close. That's what Nebraska's done. So I really think that he said it without saying it to me.
Yeah.
We're going to win football games, and we're not going to say it. We're not going to predict it, but we're going to earn respect, and that's how you do it, by actually winning freaking games.
Well, that's what all these Big Ten Media Days thrive off of, these little sound bites. And
Yeah.
Matt Rule didn't really give too many outlandish sound bites because we've seen the outlandish sound bites before, and it's just so I'm glad we had none of those outlandish sound bites. And I think there is a real chance that this team could not only make it to a bowl game, but I don't want to say win the West, but I'm trying to temper
But you want to
expectations
say
here, but I'll just say it. I think there's a realistic chance that they could win the West. I
because
truly, honestly believe that.
the West isn't that good. I
No,
mean,
the West isn't that good,
who's that good?
but I mean,
Wisconsin got picked to win the West, so Nebraska could win the West,
we
hundred
lost to
percent.
Georgia Southern, so like, I mean, even the
Yeah,
guarantees that we thought were guarantees are no guarantees, and
no,
and
no. There's not guarantees. I mean, yeah, but they could definitely they could win the Big Ten West. I think a team that wins, I mean, eight or nine games like we saw last year could win the Big Ten West. So it really is wide open. I mean, the 3 best teams in the league are in the other division. Maybe even number 4, because Maryland's actually pretty good. They
yeah,
just play in like the toughest division probably in college football this year because the SEC West, kind of dropped down a little bit. Not, I mean, at least comparable. But at any rate, I did, kind of before we wrap up I wanted to circle back to the recruiting thing this weekend.
Uh-huh.
Um, who's the most important visitor to you? Who are you watching the most at either 24, 25, either class? Who's the guy, or maybe a couple that you're really kind of interested in?
Well, one is Caleb Benning. I mean, we're kind of interested to see, what his decision is as it relates to Nebraska. Um, we're also interested to see, if they can land that legacy recruit. Um, Bodie Sukup is a name that's interesting to me as well. He's from Blair, Nebraska, and I believe he is part of the 2025 class, if I'm not mistaken. And so right now, I know, excuse me, he's 2024, and right now he's predicted to go to Minnesota State. So I think that Nebraska could really make a push here, and Nebraska has evaluated some under the radar quarterbacks over the past couple weeks. Alex Mansky is a name that comes to mind as well. So I'm interested to see if there's any movement with that because I would like to see another quarterback um, in this class. And then, I think the other big one for me would probably have to be, Tuataga. We talked about him, at the beginning of the show, but he would give us another edge rusher, and edge rushers are important in today's game. And you know, um, I'll be interested to see how his recruitment plays out and when it plays out, because as we mentioned before, West Coast recruits generally decide later with the exception of the offensive lineman we picked up earlier this month, but West Coast recruits tend to decide later. So there are a lot of names, there are a lot of return faces, and you know that's good to see to me as well because they still want to come and visit the campus.
So Stephen comments, Stephen Costello, Mansky is huge. I definitely agree with that. And I agree with you on
Yeah,
Mansky. So is Grant Bricks. And that's what I was going to talk about. Grant Bricks, if I had to rank all the
is he coming this
recruits,
weekend? I didn't see him on the.
yeah, he is. Yep, he's
Okay,
coming
so
this
yeah,
weekend.
Bricks. Never mind,
So
Bricks.
he would be number one for me overall because I just think he fills a big need. I do think that Preston Toma can play right tackle. I'm not sure about left tackle. Grant Bricks is the number 5 tackle in the country in the 24/7 rankings for 2024. He visited Kansas State and Oklahoma earlier this week, so this is kind of a big opportunity for Nebraska. They're getting the last visit before there's another dead period basically in August, and then there was talk of him, Sean Callahan reported that he may need to take more. He may want to take more official visits before a decision, which would mean like September, October. So I'm watching to see if he's the only guy on the June 23rd visit weekend that did not commit, right? And all the other guys are going to be there this weekend. I think I saw Keywan Lacey's going to be there, Quinn Clark. Danny Kalen's going to be there. I haven't seen from Carter Nelson, but I know like McMorris is going to be there. So
Carter
a lot of
Nelson will be there.
okay. So almost every guy that was there already, you know, it, on that June 23rd weekend can try to reconnect with Bricks, and maybe you can get enough momentum going to get a commitment out of him and not make him wait that long. So that's my number one guy, and then Christian Jones. I don't know if there's going to be a commitment this weekend from anybody. That would kind of surprise me, but Tyson Terry and Caden Vermoss already committed. They're coming this weekend. Christian Jones has talked about how much he respects like the in-state recruiting push. So maybe they could push him over the top two, and then number 3 is Damon Benning. I don't think he is going to commit, but
Caleb Benning.
yeah,
Damon Benning
sorry,
is way
Damon
past his
Benning.
prime.
Sorry, yeah, Caleb Benning. I just think if Nebraska comes out of this weekend as the leader, then that will kind of give us an idea where they stand in this recruitment.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think, people bring up a good point with Brandon Baker. I mean, he wants to make an official visit, but I don't think we can put all our eggs in one basket for Baker, and I'm not saying any of you are saying that. It's just like you don't want to miss out on Bricks because you make a hard push for Baker, and then, Baker doesn't come here. It worked out for, Daniel Kalen when we made a push for Dylan Raiola, but you can never count on that in recruiting in terms of, completely ignoring one recruit while trying to make a push for another. And I don't think the staff does that quite honestly, but recruiting's crazy now. You don't know.
It isn't. Yeah, Justin believes, that Nebraska has a real shot at Brandon Baker. We talked about this a little before. I don't. I think they have a shot. I don't know if they. I think that Oregon is, the leader. And I think there's a reason he said he wants to take a visit, but why hasn't it been scheduled yet? So maybe there's some hesitation on the Nebraska side of things. I don't know. We'll see. I just don't know if Nebraska, did they believe that he's serious? How's that going? So we'll see how it goes, but I'm not gonna with Baker. I'm not going to, think he's a serious contender until that visit is scheduled and he steps foot on campus. Then I'll say Nebraska's a player.
It is interesting that they're bringing bricks onto campus, and basically all the top offensive recruits are going to be visiting this weekend as well. I mean, even Landon Davidson, the interior offensive lineman, will be there. You know, Jake Peters will be there, and so they're really bringing out all the stops for the offensive players. And I'm hoping, you know, maybe they can convince Bricks to come here. And then one interesting name, really quickly, is Riker Evans. He's a running back. He is from Elwood, Nebraska, and right now it looks like it's a race between Air Force and Army. I'm gonna have to do a little bit more research on him, but he's 6 feet, 170 pounds, and so far Nebraska, he has Kawan Lacey. They have pieces in the running back room right now, but they need to get some, commits for the future. And, I think that's important. Even maybe he's not a 5-star running back, but at least getting another body in the room.
Moving over to my battery because my computer does not die. So sorry, everybody.
This is the beauty of live, I want to say live television, but live YouTubing.
But at any rate, we better wrap up
Yeah.
here shortly. But thanks for joining us, everybody, for
Yeah.
you
Thank you,
know
everybody.
another episode of this live chat. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. We'll be back for another podcast on Monday, and join us again next Saturday. So, thanks again, everybody, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.